Welcome to a journey into Africa's greatness. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe, like, share, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the stories that shaped our world. In the beginning, before the rise of the great moats, before the bronze casters shaped the history of a kingdom in fire, before the palace walls echoed with the footsteps of Obas, whose names would cross centuries, the region that would become the Benin Kingdom was a land of lush forests, sacred groves, tall trees that swayed like ancient guardians, and quiet communities searching for meaning in the patterns of the world. Children grew up hearing stories whispered beneath moonlit skies, stories of spirits in the trees, voices in the wind, and forces unseen that shaped the world. Far from being tales meant to frighten, these were stories meant to guide, protect, and connect them to. Long before the Oba throne rose into its mystical authority, the earliest Edo-speaking communities believed the world was a vast living being filled with life on every level. The rivers were alive. The earth beneath their feet was alive. The sky above them was alive, and every creature, from the smallest insect to the mighty elephant, possessed a spark of divine existence. Spirituality was not separated from daily life. It was the air people breathed, the rhythm of their days, and the heart of their traditions. The land was divided not by borders, but by stories. In the forest lived unseen beings, gentle or mischievous depending on how humans treated them. In the rivers dwelled spirits who governed fertility and abundance. In the sky watched the supreme creator, a being known long before the kingdom became an empire, a being whose presence was felt in the order of nature and the balance of life. The ancestors walked invisibly beside their descendants, watching, guiding, correcting, and blessing. The early Edo people believed that life was a journey where every step echoed the footsteps of those who came before. A child was never just a child. A child was a link between worlds, a living reminder that the community continued, and that the ancestors had not left. Elders spoke with reverence when describing the invisible world. They said that the world humans could see was only the beginning, a doorway to the greater reality. As settlements grew, stories became traditions, traditions became rituals, and rituals became a system of belief. From this network of spiritual ideas, the foundations of the Benin religion began to take shape. The people believed that destiny was real, that character shaped the path one walked, and that balance between the physical and spiritual worlds determined the prosperity of the community. This belief was the seed from which the kingdom's later religious complexity would bloom. When small farming villages grew into organized communities, leadership became more structured. The spiritual world was believed to choose the leaders, and therefore leaders were expected to maintain harmony between humans and the divine. Priests and priestesses emerged, people who devoted their lives to understanding the signs of the unseen and interpreting them for the community. Every village had elders who served as bridges between the human world and the spiritual one, guiding people through life events such as birth, naming, adulthood, marriage, harvest, and eventually death. Death was not understood as an ending. It was a continuation, a doorway into another reality where the ancestors lived. Whenever a person passed away, the villagers believed their spirit continued watching over the family. This belief would later become one of the strongest pillars of the Benin spiritual system. Reverence for the ancestors. The dead were not forgotten, they were honored. They were spoken to, consulted, and remembered. They were believed to be powerful guides who carried prayers to the higher realms. As time passed, new influences entered the region. Waves of migrations, intermarriages, and cultural exchanges shaped the communities. Among these influences were the stories from the Ife civilization, a place said to be the origin of kingship and sacred authority for many Yoruba and Edo groups. These early connections planted seeds of the idea that kingship was not only political, but deeply spiritual. It positioned the future Oba not merely as a ruler, but as a divine bridge between humans and the gods. The world was changing. The small villages of the Edo-speaking people were growing stronger. Trade routes evolved. Artistic traditions flourished. Hunters, farmers, and craftsmen shaped their communities through skill and devotion. And at the center of everything was the belief that life was sacred. The people believed that every event, whether joyful or difficult, had meaning. Every dream carried a message. Every natural occurrence, from rainfall to storms, was a sign from the divine world. This worldview produced a society deeply rooted in respect. Respect for elders, for ancestors, for the land, and for unseen forces. It also shaped how the people understood morality. Good character, honesty, kindness, loyalty, and restraint were not just values, they were spiritual virtues. A person with good character brought blessings to their family. A person with bad character brought misfortune. This idea would later become a cornerstone of Benin moral philosophy. By the time the first leaders emerged in these early communities, the belief systems had grown advanced. There were rituals for planting, rituals for harvest, rituals for naming children, and rituals for honoring ancestors. Sacred groves held shrines dedicated to different spirits and deities. And within each community existed a belief that one day, a divinely guided kingdom would rise from among them, uniting the people under a spiritual order that reflected the balance of the universe. When the first stories of Igbo appeared, an early name for the territory of the Benin people, they were stories of a land chosen by destiny. Igbo was believed to be more than land. It was believed to be a spiritual realm where the ancestors, the gods, and the living coexisted in harmony. This belief laid the groundwork for the rise of the monarchy that would later shape the identity of the Benin Kingdom. As generations passed, the people's spiritual understanding deepened. The unseen world was no longer a distant concept, but a constant presence in daily life. Children learned early that respect was not just for humans, but for the spirits in nature. Hunters prayed before entering the forest. Farmers performed rituals before planting crops. Families honored their ancestors before major decisions. Spirituality was discipline, guidance, comfort, and identity. Eventually, this system of beliefs needed structure, and structure required leadership. It was in this context that the first known rulers emerged, not yet called Obas, but spiritual leaders who guided the people with wisdom. These early rulers maintained balance between the physical and spiritual worlds. They were not kings in the later sense, but guardians of harmony. Over time, new myths, legends, and spiritual stories began to circulate. Some spoke of Osanabua, the supreme creator. Others spoke of lesser deities associated with natural forces, such as thunder, rain, fertility, and protection. These stories formed the spiritual map of the early Edo world. They gave meaning to the mysteries of life and explained the interconnectedness of all things. The people believed that the spiritual realm was vast and layered. At the highest level was the supreme creator. Below were powerful divine beings responsible for different aspects of life. Below them were the ancestors. And below the ancestors were the spirits and forces that inhabited nature. Humans stood in the middle of this hierarchy, responsible for maintaining balance through reverence, rituals, and moral conduct. This worldview would eventually influence everything, from the design of the palace to the structure of society, from the coronation of Obas to the rhythms of daily life. The Benin Kingdom was destined to become one of Africa's greatest civilizations, not only in political strength but in spiritual depth. Its religion would shape its arts, its laws, its diplomacy, its festivals, and its identity for centuries. As the early communities continued to grow, they unknowingly laid the foundation for a powerful kingdom. Their belief in the interconnectedness of all things would become a central philosophy of the Benin Empire. Their reverence for ancestors would become a defining feature of the monarchy. And their understanding of the spiritual world would turn bronze, ivory, and wood into historical documents of divine meaning. The story was only beginning. The land of Igbo was preparing to transform into a kingdom whose spiritual legacy would transcend time. And the beliefs of the early Edo-speaking people would become the heartbeat of an empire that would one day astonish the world with its artistry, power, and spiritual depth. If you're enjoying the history, click the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, like, share, and drop a comment to support the journey. As the early communities of Igodomigodo grew and the spiritual traditions deepened, the people felt the need for a guiding figure who could unify their beliefs, settle disputes, organize communal life, and maintain the delicate balance between the physical and unseen worlds. It was during this period that the era of the Ogiso began, an era that would forever shape the future spiritual identity of the Benin Kingdom. The word Ogiso means ruler of the sky, a name that shows how profoundly spiritual the throne was from its earliest days. This was not a title given by force. It was a title believed to be bestowed by spiritual destiny itself. When the first Ogiso, Igodo, arose as leader, he was seen not merely as a political head, but as a chosen guardian of harmony. People believed that the ancestors supported him and that the unseen world guided his thoughts. Under his leadership, Igodo transformed from scattered communities into a more unified territory. Villages began to identify with a central authority, and traditions became more organized. Spirituality remained the core of their daily lives, but now it had a focal point: the divine ruler who sat on the sky throne. The Ogiso era was characterized by a society where governance and spirituality were inseparable. No decision was made without consulting the divine. Before major events, the Ogiso sought spiritual guidance through priests and sacred symbols. People believed that if the ruler acted with good character, the kingdom would prosper, rains would fall at the right time, harvests would be plentiful, and peace would reign. But if the ruler lost his moral compass, disorder could enter the land. This belief created a strong moral framework for leadership. During this era, the religious structure of the region became more refined. Shrines became more elaborate, rituals more defined, and certain families became known for their spiritual roles. Among these were families devoted to the worship of specific deities or spirits. Some were rain priests, others were guardians of sacred groves. Still others served as mediators between the living and the ancestors. As Igodo expanded, stories of the supreme creator, Osanobua, became more central. Osanobua was believed to be the all-powerful, benevolent creator who brought the world into existence. Unlike many spiritual traditions, where the supreme god is feared or distant, Osanobua was respected as a wise and harmonious presence. The people believed that Osanobua created the earth, sky, waters, animals, humans, and the laws that governed existence. They believed that through harmony, humans reflected the wisdom of the Creator. Beside Osanobua were other deities, powerful beings who governed different aspects of life. These were not rivals to the Supreme Creator, but helpers, extensions of divine will. Some governed fertility, ensuring crops grew. Some governed rain. Some protected communities from danger. Each deity played a role in maintaining the balance of life. Over time, these deities would become central to the spiritual identity of the Benin Kingdom, shaping its festivals, art, rituals, and worldview. During the Ogiso era, the concept of ancestors as spiritual guardians grew even stronger. Families kept ancestral altars in their homes. They offered prayers to those who had passed on, believing that the ancestors watched over them like unseen elders. Children were taught from a young age to greet and respect ancestral altars. This practice created a sense of continuity, linking generations through a shared spiritual identity. The Ogiso era also introduced sacred symbols that represented divine authority. One such symbol was the royal staff, believed to carry spiritual power. Another was the sacred stool upon which the Ogiso sat. These objects were not merely political symbols. They were seen as containers of spiritual energy. They reminded people that leadership was sacred and that the ruler's actions were connected to the prosperity of the entire community. As generations passed and Ogisos succeeded one another, the spiritual system became more sophisticated. New rituals emerged to protect the kingdom, honor the deities, and preserve harmony. Priests acted as interpreters of divine will. They studied signs in nature, dreams, and ancestral messages. Through their guidance, the Ogiso maintained harmony between all realms of existence. However, as with any evolving society, challenges began to emerge. Some Ogisos were wise and just. Others struggled with leadership. At times, misunderstandings and disagreements arose between the ruler and the people. These challenges taught the kingdom the importance of fairness, moral integrity, and communal cooperation. Even in difficult times, spirituality remained the foundation upon which the people stood. They believed that no matter how troubled the land became, the ancestors would guide them toward balance. During this period, the artistic traditions associated with spirituality began to flourish. Craftsmen created wooden carvings representing deities, animals, and ancestral figures. These carvings were placed in shrines and sacred spaces, serving as visual reminders of the spiritual world. Over time, these artistic traditions evolved and set the stage for the bronze masterpieces that would later astonish the world. One of the unique aspects of the Ogiso era was the belief that every member of the community had a spiritual purpose. Farmers were blessed before planting to ensure their efforts were protected. Hunters performed rituals before entering the forest. Mothers prayed for their children's future. Youth participated in initiation rites that taught them values, courage, and respect. Spirituality was an active force shaping the character of every individual. Another important aspect of this era was the connection between land and spirit. The people believed that the land itself was sacred. Forests were not just groups of trees, but homes to powerful spirits. Rivers were believed to have guardians. Certain hills were considered holy. This view created a culture of environmental respect. Before a tree was cut, prayers were offered. Before land was cleared, permission was symbolically sought. This deep respect for nature would later reflect in the spiritual values of the Benin monarchy. As Ighodom continued to grow, the influence of neighboring civilizations became more visible, especially the great center of Ife. Cultural exchanges helped expand the kingdom's spiritual horizon. Stories of creation, kingship, and divine authority from Ife blended with local traditions, shaping a distinct spiritual identity for the Edo people. This blending was not seen as conflict but as enrichment. The people believed that all knowledge came from the Creator, and sharing traditions was a way of honoring divine wisdom. It was during these centuries of growth, change, and spiritual refinement that the seeds of future transformation were planted. The Ogiso era, though powerful and spiritually rich, would eventually face internal challenges that led to its decline. But even in decline, the spiritual structures established during this period would remain. They would not be lost. Instead, they would evolve, adapt, and rise again under a new form of kingship that would redefine the destiny of the kingdom. For now, during the height of the Ogiso era, the kingdom remained firmly rooted in its spiritual foundation. Families gathered in the evenings to tell stories passed down through generations. Elders taught the youth the importance of respect, humility, and courage. Priests offered guidance. Farmers cultivated land with gratitude. Children grew up feeling protected by family, ancestors, and the unseen forces that surrounded them. The Ogiso era showed the Edo people that leadership must reflect divine order, that society thrives through unity, and that spirituality is the foundation of prosperity. These ideas would later serve as the guiding principles of the Benin Empire, influencing everything from governance to family life, from festivals to artistic expression. The era was preparing to change. The spiritual traditions were ready to evolve. A new kind of kingship was on the horizon, one that would connect the kingdom even more deeply to divine authority. This new era would bring lasting transformation and would shape the identity of the Benin Kingdom for centuries to come. As the Ogiso era continued through the generations, the kingdom of Ighodom grew more complex. Families expanded, villages multiplied, and the traditions that once bound everyone together began to face new pressures. Spirituality remained the heart of the society, but maintaining harmony became more challenging as the population grew and ambitions increased. For centuries, the Ogisos had served as custodians of divine balance. But slowly, cracks began to appear, not in the religion itself, but in how it was practiced and protected. In the early days of the Ogiso era, the throne was seen as a sacred burden. A ruler was expected to embody moral purity, wisdom, and humility. The Ogiso was the bridge between the people and the divine. But as the decades turned into centuries, some rulers strayed from these ideals. A few became harsh, others became distant from the people, and some allowed personal desires to overshadow their sacred responsibilities. These weaknesses did not appear all at once. They grew quietly like weeds in a field, unnoticed until they began to choke the harmony the kingdom once enjoyed. Even though most Ogisos ruled with sincerity, the memory of a few troubled reigns created doubt in the minds of the people. Priests found themselves working harder to maintain peace. Elders worried about the future. Families noticed that the societal unity they once relied on was slowly changing. Still, spirituality remained woven into the fabric of life. People continued to honor ancestors, worship deities, and cherish the guidance of the unseen world. But the sacred connection between the throne and the divine began to feel strained. The palace, once a symbol of spiritual authority, began to experience internal disagreements. Some chiefs disagreed with the Ogiso on how justice should be administered. Others believed the throne had become too isolated, too far removed from the daily lives of the people. These tensions did not immediately disrupt the kingdom, but they created a quiet discontent that lingered over the land. As disagreements grew, so did misunderstandings. Some communities felt neglected. Others believed the sacred responsibilities of leadership were being weakened. This uncertainty spread slowly but steadily across Igbo. And whenever a society begins to question the sacredness of its leadership, the spiritual foundation becomes fragile. Despite these challenges, the everyday people continued to live by the principles taught by their ancestors. Farmers rose with the sun, praying for strength and guidance. Mothers taught their children the values of honesty, courage, and respect. Elders reminded the youth that character was the light that guided every step. Even during times of tension, the spiritual traditions remained strong in the hearts of the people. However, spiritual harmony at the community level could not fully repair the growing divide within the palace. The chiefs who advised the Ogiso increasingly argued among themselves. The rulers struggled to regain the unity that defined earlier generations. And slowly the people began to wonder whether the throne still carried the divine favor that once guided it so clearly. One of the final Ogisos, Ogiso Owodo, is often remembered as the ruler whose reign marked the turning point in the kingdom's destiny. His time on the throne was filled with internal conflict, political disputes, and misunderstandings that made it difficult for the spiritual order to hold firm. Owodo was not without good intentions, but he faced challenges that were larger than any one person could overcome. Divisions within the leadership, complex disagreements, and miscommunication weakened the unity of Igbo. During Owodo's reign, a dispute arose involving his son. It began as a domestic concern, but ultimately grew into a major conflict that spread across the kingdom. This dispute tested the spiritual authority of the throne. The chiefs, once united, were now divided in their opinions. Some felt the Ogiso acted too harshly. Others believed he acted too slowly. The confusion deepened, and with it, the spiritual trust between the ruler and the people began to fade. As the kingdom wrestled with these issues, the priests observed troubling signs. Rituals meant to restore harmony were less effective. Dreams brought warnings instead of reassurance. Natural symbols, those believed to reflect the state of divine order, seemed to hint at approaching change. The elders, wise from decades of experience, sensed that a major transformation was coming. They spoke carefully, for such matters required respect, but they advised the people to prepare for an era unlike any before. Eventually, the disagreements reached a point where the chiefs decided that Owodo could no longer continue as Ogiso. For the first time in the history of the kingdom, the throne of the sky was vacated not through peaceful succession, but through the decision of the people and their leaders. The removal of a ruler was a serious matter, and the kingdom remained respectful, but the spiritual void that followed was undeniable. With no Ogiso on the throne, Igbo entered a period of uncertainty. People wondered how the kingdom would maintain spiritual harmony without a divine ruler. Children listened to their parents speak in hushed tones about the future. Priests offered guidance, but even they felt the weight of the change that had come. The land seemed to pause as if holding its breath. Yet in every ending, there is the beginning of something new. The people believed the ancestors would not abandon them. They trusted that the Supreme Creator had a plan. They hoped that a new form of leadership would soon rise, one that would restore the harmony they cherished. This hope was not based on fear, but on faith, a faith rooted in the centuries-old belief that destiny always guides those who honor the divine. As news spread of the Ogiso throne being empty, messengers carried messages to nearby territories. The chiefs and elders gathered frequently, discussing what the future should look like. They believed the kingdom needed a leader who would embody spiritual authority, moral integrity, and unity. A leader who could hold the kingdom together and guide it into a new era of greatness. Discussions led them to a conclusion that would shape history. The next ruler must not only govern, but also restore the spiritual connection that had weakened. He must be chosen not by force or ambition, but by destiny. And so the chiefs decided to reach out to a prestigious and spiritually respected center, Ile-Ife, a place with an ancient connection to divine kingship. Their decision was not made lightly. Ife was known for its sacred traditions, deep spiritual wisdom, and long history of producing leaders believed to be divinely guided. It was believed that Ife held keys to spiritual authority passed down from the earliest times, preserved through ritual and tradition. The chiefs believed that if the kingdom was to be restored, its new ruler must come from a lineage deeply connected to the divine. So they sent a message to Ife, calling upon its leadership to send a prince who could take up the throne of Igodo Migodo. This request marked one of the most important turning points in the history of the Benin Kingdom. It was the moment when fate began to weave a new path, one that would lead to the rise of the Oba dynasty, the transformation of Igodo Migodo into the Benin Kingdom, and the strengthening of a spiritual tradition that would endure for centuries. While the chiefs awaited a response from Ife, the people continued their daily lives with hopeful hearts. Children played beneath the trees, unaware of the historical transition unfolding around them. Elders shared stories that encouraged patience and unity. Families prayed to the ancestors for guidance. The land may have lacked a ruler, but it did not lack faith. The period between the fall of the Ogiso era and the coming of the new dynasty was a time of reflection and preparation. It taught the people the importance of unity, respect, and spiritual discipline. It reminded them that leadership should reflect divine order and good character. It prepared them to welcome a new era with open hearts and renewed hope. For now, the kingdom waited, a kingdom on the edge of transformation, guided by destiny, protected by ancestors, and watched over by the Supreme Creator. The story of the Oba dynasty was about to begin, and with it the spiritual foundations of the Benin Empire would reach heights greater than the people of Igodo Migodo had ever imagined. Thank you for traveling through history with us. If this story inspired you, remember to subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Your support helps keep our heritage alive. Until the next chapter, stay curious, stay proud, and keep exploring the greatness of Africa.